Hello, welcome to the Last Supper of Outcasts. And I'm your host, Charles Bronson. Today is Sunday, June 14th, 2026. Not that it matters. Here's our quote for the day. It's by Charles Bukowski. Money is like sex. It seems much more important when you don't have any. And that, I believe, is from his book, Hollywood. Charles Bukowski is one of my knights at the round table. He's one of my disciples at the Last Supper. He's a prized consultant. If you don't know who Charles Bukowski is, I highly recommend looking into him. And today I wanted to talk about my time in Hollywood, thus the title. Tales from the Bulging Hollywood Flashlight, which is a take on a Michael Landau CD. It's a wonderful CD. Michael Landau, if you don't know who he is, he's probably been on more records than you can that there even exists. He's a brilliant guitar player, and I had the privilege to meet him and to enjoy him live at a club called the Baked Potato, which we're going to get into in a little while. And I was just listening to music tonight to tune out of all the garbage that's going on in this world. And Michael Landau popped up, and that's what got me thinking about this video, and it got me thinking about my time in Hollywood. And it got me also thinking about Hollywood, especially me coming from a very small town where everybody knows each other and everyone doesn't really know anything about life because they're all in their little closets. There's nothing against that, but you think you know things and you don't. So Hollywood may have been my greatest teacher because it is Hollywood. I saw the best of the best, and I saw the worst of the worst. You don't get that in Mayberry. You get that by going out and searching. And that's another thing I realized about myself. I'm searching for what is real, and I'm sure a lot of you are too. I lived in Hollywood from August 1999, right before the millennium was going to happen, where all the computers were going to turn off and we were going to be living in Mad Max and shooting each other over gasoline. And I left around 2009, which was during the great financial crisis that started in 2006, but it depends where you get your news from. I was on the front lines. I saw it coming 2 years before it started. And I'm not going to beat around the bush. Hollywood was electric. You never knew who you were going to run into, literally. Now, I'm a musician. That's one of the big reasons I even went there. It was me and my wife at the time, who was beautiful, and she still is. And I still love her, even though we are separated. I still love her. She was the catalyst for me to getting to the realizations that I've come to. And they may not have a lot, but I have a lot of realizations. And I'm coming to know who I am. And I think that is what I've always been searching for. But other than that, let's just get on with Hollywood. You never knew who you were going to run into. And me being a musician, I'm specifically a drummer. One of the first things I did, being a drummer, I looked up Vinny Caluta, who was introduced to me when I was in college. I saw him at a clinic, and my teacher, he was a like a polyrhythmic monster. He was pretty knowledgeable about fancy rhythms and things that no other drum teacher was really talking about, and he was espousing Vinny Caluta, and I knew he was serious, and I knew that Vinny was serious, and I went to a clinic, and he blew my mind, and it was probably around 1984, and I've ever since I've been a humongous Vinny Caluta fan. Who isn't? Who couldn't be? If you're a musician or a drummer, if you don't know who Vinny Caluta is, you need to get your 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 brain checked. If you're a musician, period. And if you don't know who Michael Landau is, you also need to kind of check yourself. Uh, so the first thing I did when I went to Hollywood was I looked up Vinny Caluta because I knew he lived in Hollywood and I didn't know where or whatever, but he, lo and behold, much to my luck, he was showing up after his tour with Sting at the Baked Potato, which is a gemstone of Hollywood. It's owned by Don Randy, who was a member of the Wrecking Crew, and that's a whole nother story. If you don't know who the Wrecking Crew is and you're claimed to be a musician, I'm going to tell you right now, you're lost. So get on it. But Don Randy who was a member of the Wrecking Crew, and was also married to Nancy Sinatra, who was the daughter of Frank Sinatra. So if you don't know if any of these people are, and you consider yourself to be a musician, I'm here to tell you, you're not a very good musician. And but on with the story. I'm not going to get angry, but it's just a fact. It's time to start calling things out here, folks. Stupid is stupid, period. And so I found Vinny at the Baked Potato. He was off the Sting tour, and luckily I caught him at that time because I don't think he's ever showed up since. And there's videos on YouTube you can see. I was at those concerts. I was at those events, and I showed up the first time. I remember every time I went, there was a line around the door. There was a line literally around the building. I mean, because people know when something's good and something's quality. And Michael Landau, Vinny Caluta. The band consisted of Michael Landau, Vinny Caluta, Abraham Laboriel Sr., who's been on every album that you've probably ever heard in your life, Greg Matheson, and Jimmy Johnson on bass, Greg Matheson on keyboards. And I went to almost every show. It was expensive, but I went to almost every show. And I remember the first time I went, I remember seeing Vinny standing outside smoking a cigarette. And he says in one of the videos, he comes back on the YouTube videos, and it's actually, it kind of looks like this a little bit, but that's not really the one. But you just look up Vinny Caluta at the Baked Potato around 2000, and they're all in black and white. I remember exactly where I was standing and everything. And I remember going in, and Vinny was outside, and he was wearing a big jacket, it was the middle of winter, and it's probably 90 degrees out, smoking a cigarette. And then he comes in behind the drum set, and it's on film, and he says, I was outside smoking a cigarette. And I remember that. I didn't say anything to him because it's Vinny Caluta. He was almost like a god, honestly. And that's not a lie. So... And then I got to enjoy those shows. And I remember one of the shows, the it was literally like a religious experience. They turned the lights down, and Abe Laboriel was almost like it was in a chant, like some kind of a Gregorian chant. It was literally. I mean, I'm getting chills just thinking about it. There was literally one time where it was really like it was just literally blowing the roof off the building and blowing my mind and blowing my spirit. And I am so thankful I got to see those shows. Uh, I can't even express it. And then just to put some balance in here, I remember me and my buddy one time. I became a big Michael Landau fan, and I'm a drummer, but I love Michael Landau. I actually found out about him in New York, and when I lived in New York, and I didn't realize that him and Vinny were even a thing. And much to my surprise, they're like two peas in a pod. And I met him, and Michael Landau actually gave me this CD. I should have had him sign it, but that's what an idiot I was at the time. I didn't know really who I was dealing with. But these guys are special, man. They're special. There's no doubt in my mind. This is another one I got from. I drove to a house in Hollywood. I can't remember exactly where it was, but this has Carlos Vega on drums, who's also just brilliant. Those albums, man, they really are special. So if you don't know who any of these guys are, I would highly suggest, especially if you're a musician, you need to know. You need to know who these people are. And then to put in a little balance in terms of lessons of Hollywood, I remember being at a baked potato show with my buddy Chris. Chris, if you're out there, I love you, man, and you're one of my best friends. Chris was one of my best friends in Hollywood, and we would do a lot of things. We'd go to a lot of clubs, and Chris played bass, and we would have a lot of good times jamming. And one time we were at the Baked Potato, and I know he remembers this. It was I can't remember for the life of me. It was a big name sax player, but he was a little bit past his time. We all get past our time. And, but he was at the Baked Potato, and Chris and I, or at least one of us, recognized the name and say, hey, let's go check this out. And we did. And I remember this because it was kind of shocking that during the like a little bit of an intermission, it's kind of sad, but it's kind of funny at the same time, and it just shows you how funny life is. I remember this saxophone player, who again was a big name at one time. He was a huge name, and during this particular baked potato show, he decided that the band wasn't good enough, and he literally packed up in his arms. I think he had like 4 or 5 saxophones. He literally took them off the stand and walked out of the building with all his saxophones. It was incredible, and I mean, and it's just a lesson. It's just a lesson that all these people that we look up to and everything, they're still people. Fortunately or unfortunately, they're still people. And it was a lesson in just how life works. So that kind of ties into what this channel is kind of about. And it's about my experiences with life and my observances. It's nothing I read out of a book. Some of it is. But, I mean, these are things I experienced. And then I remember one time Chick Corea was another, I mean, I'm a drummer, but Chick Corea is notorious for having great drummers, such as Steve Gadd, for instance, And if you're a musician and you don't know who Steve Gadd is, maybe you should become a dentist, honestly. Uh, but I remember going to the Church of Scientology, and it was going to be just Chick Corea. And I do play the piano, although not well, but I do play it. And I love the piano. And it was just him by himself at the Church of Scientology in Hollywood. And I went to the concert, just me, by myself. And it was awesome, you know. And then I got to meet Chick, but I wanted him to sign a CD, which he did. This is the CD. It's 4 quartets. It's just or 3 quartets. I'm sorry. Steve Gadd, Eddie Gomez, Michael Brecker. Oh my God! Talk about a sax player. And if you don't know who Michael Brecker is, man, just hang it up, dude. And Chick Corea. I mean, what a brilliant band this is. It's one of my favorite records of all time. And he signed it. He spelled my name wrong, but whatever. But in order to get him to sign the CD, it's just funny. I literally had to. I went up to him. There was a small line. There wasn't really that many people there. This is how, lost humans are. Chick Corea shows up and, there's 10 people there. But there was a small line. So I waited in line for him and I asked him, can you sign my CD? And then he looks at somebody like, can I sign this? And then I think somebody told me I had to go and watch the L. Ron Hubbard movie upstairs. So he signed it, but I had to go sit through like a 45-minute cartoon of the religion of Scientology. And it's just kind of crazy to think about. But it was funny. But man, Chick Corea, either way, man, one of the best there ever was. So whatever I got to do, I still got his autograph. And so I did it. And to this day, I swear to God, the Church of Scientology they should contract themselves out as collectors, because they still have my address, even though it's in the 30 years or whatever that I've left Hollywood. They still mail me stuff. So they should be like a skip tracer or something, collection agencies or banks that are looking for people, or, people that are lost. They should hire the Church of Scientology, because it's more than likely that they'll be able to find them. And, but back to the baked potato. The baked potato was owned by one of the members of the Wrecking Crew. And it just brought back to me a memory. I played in a band back in Buffalo with a cousin of Tommy Tedesco, who was one of the most brilliant studio guitar players that ever lived, literally. And I played with his cousin, and Tommy Tedesco was a member of the Wrecking Crew. And I just thought that's something, man, that they talk about 6 degrees of knowing, you know what I mean? And Tommy Tedesco, there's all sorts of stories about him on YouTube, and he was definitely a character, and his cousin was a character too. But I just wanted to throw that out there. But I also my own claim to fame, I guess, is I got to play in a lot of the clubs that people have heard of all over the country, such as the Mint. And one show at the Mint, actually, Marla Maples was there. And she was at, I think, Donald Trump's second wife. And I don't know, I didn't meet her, but she was in the crowd. She doesn't come to see us. She was just happened to be at the Mint. And I played at the Joint. I played on the Rocks, which is on top of the Roxy. Played at the Knitting Factory, the Viper Room, Cantor's, where apparently Sheryl Crow was discovered, and the Derby, and a lot of other clubs. So Hollywood, it was exciting, man. But boy, I saw, like I said, I saw some of the best, of things, and some of the worst. Um, and other than that, I also worked as a loan officer in the real estate industry, as I said in a previous video. And when the stuff hit the fan there, that whole business dried up. It was like hitting a wall. So I went back into I have a background in graphic arts, so I went back into that, and then they had a cattle call of layoffs. It was a nightmare. And then I moved back home, which is probably for the best because my mother ended up passing away 3 years after I got back home. So maybe it was all for the best because I got to spend three years with my mother before she passed away. And so, there you have it. There's just my little take on Hollywood. Uh, and a big lesson I learned from Hollywood was, be careful about putting people on pedestals, whether they're an athlete, a musician, an artist, a businessman. They're all still people, and they're all faulty. That was one of the biggest lessons I probably learned. I don't regret my time there. It was a great teacher, and that's all I wanted to say. I wanted to get that out there. So if you don't know who any of those musicians are that I mentioned, and you are a musician, you need to get with it, brother, and check those people out. But other than that, I hope you got something out of the video. Hope I didn't stutter as much. Maybe you noticed. I'm trying, but this is a little bit on the lighter side, but it's just another take of my experiences and a little bit of what I got out of them, and how things maybe work out for a reason. So I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you got something out of it. Please like and subscribe to the video. Hit the notification bell if there is one. And other than that, I'll talk to you soon. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have a great night.